Okay, hey everybody, it's Kate Richburg, and um, if you can see me and hear me, let me know. Let me get me up on the screen here. Here I am. Alrighty. So this morning, it was a lot of fun. I was over at the SNAG conference, the Society of North American Goldsmiths. It was the last day of their conference, and I was in the booth for PEPE tools. It was a lot of fun. I thought, though, however, that I had until 11:30, and it looks like I only had until 11. So my broadcast cut out kind of right in the middle of when I was finishing up. So I wanted to finish up as I blot and make myself look not so disheveled. I thought I would go and just broadcast right here on my YouTube channel, just the conclusion of this. So if anybody is watching, and I'll send this over to Snag, this link, so that you can finish watching everything. And you guys who follow me at Kate Richburg can find me, and it's a little extra bonus content for you guys. So let me just very quickly, since some of you are new to this, you can of course always find and follow me on social media. Be Kate Richburg on YouTube. Hit that like and subscribe. My Facebook groups, and of course my website. So let me give you guys who just started, I know that some of you have jumped in over here. Let me give you a quick overview of what I did, and then we'll finish what I'm going to do, and then that's it. Shouldn't take too long, okay? So let me go over here to my camera over here on my workbench, and this is kind of where I left off at the broadcast, okay? So we were going to talk about ring mandrels, and with PEPE, I love their hardened ring mandrels, and we were going to talk about this flattened mandrel here that we use to make open shank rings, and then these regular mandrels here for these, okay, just round ring mandrels. So what I did earlier was I cut a strip. This is just a kind of a practice piece, but I cut a strip of 18 gauge metal, and I formed it, soldered it into a ring with a nice strong seam. And now I'm just going to slide it on this ring mandrel. It's a little hard for you to see here, but I'm going to slide it on this ring mandrel and just use my hands to get it going, okay, like so. And now you can see it's given a nice round shape, and I'm going to really gently just tap it around to round it up. Okay, and I'm going to flip it and tap it. Okay, that's it. And so you can see how nice and round that looks. So I have an overlay band for this that's going to sit over the top. And I have also soldered that. I've made each of these. Now these are messy. I haven't cleaned them up. There's solder all over these and stuff, but it's just kind of a placeholder for, you know, if we were doing this in real life, we'd be working a lot more neatly. So to give you guys that just jumped on, if you didn't see the earlier demo for the SNAG conference, what I did was, this is an overlay that's going to go over this band, little applique. And what I used was, I used my pancake die from Potter USA, this little mountain pancake die, and I cut this out. Right, and the idea is when you make these overlay bands, these kind of applique bands, whatever, it's really hard to get them the same, you know, to fit so they're super tight, right, and they don't move around and stuff on you. Okay, so I cut both of these at 63 millimeters here for this round band, 63 millimeters for this mountain. Okay. And so I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to come in, I'm going to get my mandrel, and I'm going to push it down with just my hands, and then I'm going to tap it a little bit. I don't want to overstretch, I just want to round it. Okay. So now these two rings are the same size. But when you make an applique band, right, you want to have a perfectly round band, and you want this band to fit over the top so it sits nice and flush and tight, and so you don't have any air when you go to solder these two together. I am going to file this bottom just a little bit so it's even-ish. Okay, you can see a lot of solder to clean up. This is just some practice bands with copper. If I were doing this in real life, I would be a little less slapdash about this. I would have also probably patterned this mountain range, maybe done some patterning on this back seam, whatever. Okay, but so we're going to use a ring stretcher and reducer to make these two pieces fit together. Okay, so I'm going to highlight another camera. Three cameras today, you guys. That's the guillotine, the little 6-inch shear that I have that you're looking at right now, but I'm going to go on the other side of the studio so you guys can see this. And I'm going to come over here to this ring stretcher and reducer, okay, which is here. You can see that, okay? And what this is it's a tool that looks like a ring mandrel, right? It has a ring mandrel on it, right? And when you open and close when you push the handle towards you, the splines contract so that they're tighter. And when you push the handle away from you, they spread. Okay, so it's just gonna help me round everything up. I'm gonna start by putting this regular band on. I don't want to stretch it that much, right? I'm just gonna stretch it a very little bit so it's kind of even. Okay, so that's this. This is about a size 8, maybe a little bit more. Then this overlay, this is where we want to come in. Now I've soldered, and those of you who watched my presentation earlier, this ring band has been soldered with hard solder. That's what we do. And we're going to come in and we're going to stretch this. And this metal is very soft. Again, it's 18 gauge, but I don't want to go too crazy, right? I just opened it up. And I want to check and see it's stretched some, but we're going to continue to stretch this out. There we go. And you can see as I push the handle away from me, the splines are opening up. Then I push it, I flip it, push it back down, and push it away. Now you don't want to get too crazy because you want to make sure that your seam doesn't pop. Okay, so you just continue at this. Ooh, it's getting there. It's so close. Because again, you don't want it to be too big, or else it won't fit perfectly and be really easy to solder. And if you feel like you have to anneal this again, you can. But I can feel that it's growing. See how I'm taking it down? Like so. Let me just make sure I can see your comments there. Okay, great. So, can you see the inside? I'll show you. It's almost, hard for you to see, it's almost there. So stretch. And I could also, which I might do, is reduce the band down a little bit so you can see it. So it's almost there. So the reducer, what the reducer does is it's this little tool right here. And essentially what you do, this is at a 17-degree angle in here. And what you do is you find a place in the reducer where your band fits, but where it sits up tall. And then this is about the right one. And as you push, it reduces the circumference of that ring. So let's go ahead. I'm going to put that in, put this guy, and you want to make sure it's nice and even. I'm going to put it underneath the tool. And as I pull that forward, you can see it compresses the band down. And I'm going to do that to the other side. And it's a good idea. I mean, if you make a lot of rings and you're playing around with rings and stuff, it's a good idea to kind of play with the size. See, there we go. Can you see that? How that's really fitting in there? So you kind of want to do this by feel almost, really, right? So that you, because you don't want to work too quickly on this. You don't want to stress or fatigue the metal, and you don't want to pop any of your seams. So I'm going to reduce that one more time, push it down. I love the stretching and reducing tool. I also feel like it, what do I want to say? Like it evens everything out. There we go. That one really reduced. There we go. So this is just about there. Just about there. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to just round this up just to make sure that those edges are nice and even. And I'm going to stretch this band just a hair more. But again, as you can imagine, your solder seams need to be perfect for this, right? The joins need to be really tight. Oh, we're real close. Now, if I needed to anneal this, I could. But I think I can get away with one more stretch. Now, I made these ring bands the same size, and also the stretching and reducing. There we go. The stretching and reducing will also will thin out the metal that's on top of it. So I'm going to take this back to the desk and we'll take a look. Okay, so here we are. So here's that band that I reduced just slightly. Now, I knew this was happening and I was rushing through it, but you can see I have popped my seam just a little, not even the whole seam is popped. But you can see here how, and it'll close when I solder it, but can you see how when I put this down over the top, how there's no air anywhere here, that it's a nice, tight fit. And so I'm going to really push it down And this is all ready to go. So when I solder, I'm just getting this a little bit closer to my eye level, so bear with me here for just a second. So when I solder, everything will fit together really, really perfectly. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back on the stretcher for just a hair, because I want that inner band. There's a little space where that inner band is not meeting the outer band. So I just want to stretch it out, and then I'll show you the result here. Then after this, I'm going to go over a couple of the things. I have a piece in the Hone and Highlight that I want to show you. Yeah, and here we go. So can you see how I came back in, I stretched this out just a little, and so we've got a nice close seam right there. Okay, so this is ready for me to solder. Just like that, nice and tight and good to go. And what I would do is I would just place my solder pillions all along underneath and pull that solder up the band like that. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay, so let me show you, and that'll be that's a great band. And then I'll show you, we'll cut it, we can cut it away. And I really wanted these seams to line up. I wasn't really thinking that great, but that's okay. You want your two seams, this seam and this seam, to actually line up, but I was doing this in a rush, but that's okay. I'm going to place that over there. And I'll show you, we were working on some beads as well, which looks like this, some beads here. And I have some in the Hone and Highlight. Now, you've heard me talk about this before when I demoed for you about this Hone and Highlight. Hone and Highlight is great. It's a tumbling medium that is a ceramic medium. And I'm going to grab the tumbler. And I'm going to grab some paper towels. And I'm going to grab a rinsing dish. And I'm going to bring them back into your view here in just a second. So what I made earlier, I did some fold forming in the rolling mill. And the sheets of what I made looked like, I'll show you. Now I don't have to worry about being in a time crunch, so I can just kind of finish up this demo. But I really appreciate PEPE Tools and everybody at SNAG for the opportunity to do all those demos this morning, and we'll just finish everything up here on my YouTube channel. We always improvise, it always works, right? So these are some of the samples of the fold forming I did in my rolling mill earlier. And what this is, and maybe I'll do this as a demo for you guys someday on my channel. It was really fun. Essentially, I got some thin gauge metal, folded it up, ran it through the rolling mill, did some other fun things to it, and then I cut out some discs or some flat round shapes using the round disc cutter from our friends at PEPE. Okay, and so it was a 1-inch cutter that I used in my PEPE disc cutter, and it was the round cutter. It looks like this. Okay, and you've seen me use that before. Okay, and I'm not going to demo that today. I'll do that for you again sometime in the future. But so I had these two rounds. I dapped them in my dapping block. So I made two domes that were similar to this, that looked like this. I cut some holes in them, and then I soldered them together. And what I've got is in this hone and highlight. The hone and highlight is a ceramic medium that I use in the tumbler. And you can use it on a bunch, you know, for as short as an hour, right? This has been going for about an hour. Or as long as some jewelry artists use it like for 10 hours, and they really use it to give a really great matte finish, kind of knocks the edges down on your pieces just a little bit, kind of softens the whole thing, puts it through a softer lens. And it works for if you have kind of a more organic style of jewelry making. I think it works out really well. If you do a jewelry style that's a little more contemporary and a little more hard-edged and a little shinier and more finished, then it might not be the finish for you. But I dig it. I use it a lot. And so you can see here's the circles that I used. I'm trying to clear all of the steel and stuff out of the way because I'm going to get some water here, and we don't want water and any of our steel tools to be together. All right. So here's my rotary tumbler, and let's open this up. Okay. And you can get that hone and highlight right at PEPE. Rosie Revolver, she was the, you might want to follow her on Insta as well. She was the purveyor of this really great product. I'll pull it out so you can see what it looks like. See, it looks like this, just little chunks. And the more you use it, the more that those chunks get kind of knocked down, those edges. And here, before I put this in the hone and highlight, let me rinse everything so you can see it. It had a lot of fire scale and a lot of fire stain and stuff on it. What I would have done normally, I would have come in and just pickled the piece, right? And then darkened it with some liver of sulfur. And then I would have thrown it in the hone and highlight. But what I did was I filed these edges down a bit with some sandpaper. And you can see I left that flame patina. So the hone and highlight, what it's given me is this beautiful red color that was underneath that fire stain. And see how it's been taken off in the high spots? And the hole here, it's taken off some of that sharpness of the hole. And so it's a really beautiful lentil bead. I'm very, very pleased with how this came out. Now, something like this, what I can do is I might give it just a touch more filing. I can see on that edge. And this is a class that I teach, and I should offer it again, where I teach how to make all kinds of metal beads. But it's really a lot of fun to make these lentils. Just going to file it. See there, that file? And I'm just polishing up that edge anyway. This is 400 grit that I'm doing. And I'll do that other side. Now, I hope I have some. I'm going to check and see if I do, just off the cuff here. Patinas, especially, we've been doing a lot about patinas here on my YouTube channel and on my social media lately. I've been having kind of a love affair with patina. I'm going to knock down right at the hole there too. I should have made 2 of these because this would have made a really beautiful earring, but it'll also make a really great pendant. I'm going to put that down there so you can see, you can look at it up close while I go grab what I hope I can find. So this is the 1-inch disc, the cutter that I used in the disc cutter. If you don't have a disc cutter, PEPE tools is the way to go for your disc cutter. Anything less is just going to be a nightmare for you. You need a cutter that screws down, right? PEPE tools, it's made in the USA. I bought my first PEPE disc cutter. I couldn't even tell you how long ago, probably almost 30 years ago. So it's a really durable and great cutter to have if you're doing any of your own disc cutting. What I'm looking for here and what I'm not successfully finding, though I might, I'm rustling around, is some Renaissance wax. Waxing this surface will really enhance the texture and the color of this bead, but I can't seem to lay my hands on my Renaissance wax. I'm going to look one more place, and then I'll do a little bit of a workaround instead. Do I see it down there? You can never quite find exactly what you need, right, when you do these demos on the fly. That's okay. No Ren wax. But I'm going to use second best here. And I talked about this earlier in my demo, is I'm going to oil this up a little bit. I would use the Renaissance wax. It's a microcrystalline wax that seals your pieces and makes them look really nice and kind of velvety and satiny. But I also have some coconut oil here, and the coconut oil is going to kind of give that same effect. The coconut oil I use also to protect my tools, so it's a good one. So here's that bead. Here's the coconut oil. I just have it in a jar that lives on my bench here. I'm going to get a little bit of that coconut oil. I'm going to paint it on this bead. And this copper will continue to naturally patina, but having that oil on there will kind of help it help slow that patinaing process, if that makes any sense, kind of seal it from the elements. Renaissance wax does the same thing. I'm trying to get my coconut oil back to where it goes, and I'm not being very successful. There we go. And now I'll just let it sit on there, and now I'll buff it with a soft cloth. And look at the sheen that imparts to it. I'm super stoked about that. Look at that. It's just, if I do say so myself, it's kind of delicious. I'm very pleased. And that hone and highlight really, what I like to call the flame patina, really let the flame patina stay in some parts and expose the metal in others. So we'll see how this bead ages. It's really a great copper. It's very inexpensive, right? And it's fun to practice with. So I am very pleased with how that little beauty turned out. The ring, what we want to do with that ring, and I just want to show you, especially if you make your way over here from the SNAG conference, I just want to talk you guys through this. And I'll do this again on maybe a more long form demo on my YouTube channel. This was a little slapdash, but I want to put some closure onto this piece. And again, this is done in copper because this was kind of a practice piece. So I didn't want to commit to doing it in sterling silver, but it would really look beautiful in sterling. I want to get the water away from what I'm doing so that I don't rust any of my steel tools. So just bear with me here just a second. And let's come back to this ring. So the ring mandrel that I have here that's on your right. This is the open shank ring mandrel. So when you make rings that have a flat back, and let me show you, this is a ring that I made a while back here, right? And so when you're making a ring that has a flat back on it, right, you want an open shank ring like this, sometimes it's hard to get everything like this exactly like you want it to fit. So this mandrel, what it does is, once I've soldered these, so let's pretend that these are soldered together, and let's also pretend that these two seams are lined up, okay? You put this ring on the mandrel, okay? And you start to form it. Okay, and you hammer that down. I'm going to actually use my metal hammer here. If I can find, there it is. My rawhide mallet wasn't quite as aggressive as I wanted it to be. I'm going to come in and I'll flatten that down. And I'll flatten this whole thing. This, remember, we'll pretend it's been soldered, okay? So that when I take this off the mandrel, and I'm going to flip it again, when I take this off of the mandrel, I said when I take this off of the mandrel, there we go. What I have here, see the shape now has a nice flat surface on top? What I'll do, if everything went well when I created this piece, right? I did the overlay band, I soldered it, there's no air, it's nice and closed and nice and tight. Then what I do is I simply come in and I saw down the center of this ring. And it gives me, and I can even saw out like a chunk or a section of this ring, so that when the piece, the cabochon, and let's just pretend that this piece of sandpaper is my cabochon, okay? When that's soldered down to the top, those little legs will fit just perfectly with a little bit of space in between. So it gives you a really nice like edge bend here. You could simply keep this like if this were just the ring, right, without an overlay on it or whatever. And I might do a little bit of filing here to make sure the fit is exactly right. Or I could also take and remove, you know, if I had done this now, I could take and I could remove some of this overlay here and just have it on the sides. There's a lot of different ways that you can deal with this. But it gives you that nice bend, that nice curve there, so you're able to put a nice cabochon right on the top of that. So this is a little bit mangled, but it's my demo version. I'll work on kind of maybe a prettier version for that. But I just wanted to put a period to these two ring mandrels again from PEPE. I really love this flat one, and I need to explore it just a little bit, you know, a little bit more and to play around with it. But you can see I like doing those open back bands quite a bit. And so here's that one there, cut from the fold formed pieces in my rolling mill. So let me get my face back up here. There we go. Here I am. Let me solo that. There we are. So thanks you guys so much for joining me. Those of you who were with me in the Expo booth at the SNAG conference earlier, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that all of that content was exciting for you and that you learned a few things. Again, you can always find me on social media, on Insta. You can subscribe and like to my YouTube channel. And of course, you can find my group, Create with Kate Richburg, and my Kate Richburg Jewelry Educator page as well. I also have a class coming up. It's almost full, so I would love to have you join me. I think there's just one spot available. It's on Saturday, July 10th. It goes from 10 to 4. That's Pacific time, and it's a virtual class on riveting basics. So if you've never riveted before, don't worry, I got you covered. If you have riveted before, I am going to be showing some advanced techniques as well. So you can go right to my website, katerichburgjewelry.com, for more details. And of course, I see you during the week on the beadshop.com YouTube channel on Wednesdays and Fridays for a whole bunch more really fun demos and all that good stuff. So thanks for joining me for this little impromptu demo, but I wanted to pull it all together and have a nice finish for this. So thank you for joining me here on my YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me earlier at the SNAG conference at the Expo booth for PEPE Tools. This is Kate Richburg, and I will see you guys soon. Thanks so much, everybody.